Shields and swords, field of wars, fighting my blood down to the core. Warriors from medieval age, fear the reign of night brigades. Crusades into the room, moving through the temples and tombs. Scared and placed, prepare to face Professor Awesome and the minions of doom. 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 Professor Awesome and the minions of doom.
Hi minions. So today I wanted to do something that was visual, which is why you're looking at that on your screen. I want to talk about this book, The Golden Treasury of Myths and Legends, which is a children's book, and it contains a lot of non-medieval things. I'd say maybe 20% of it is medieval legends. Most of it is classical legends or legends from other countries. But the reason I want to talk about this was that, as you know, I have a forthcoming book on Beowulf in graphic novels and comic books, and I interviewed a lot of artists for it. And one thing that interested me was this book kept coming up among the artists as something that had really influenced them, even though we don't see this artistic style in a direct way on any of the comic books or graphic novels. Now, it's not itself a comic book. It's not a graphic novel. It's a children's edition that's then illustrated. So very, very abridged versions of these legends, retold in child-friendly language with then illustrations in them. And I wanted to write about it in my book, and I kept trying to find a way to write about it. And it kept feeling like I was shoehorning it in there. So I had to omit it from my book. But I did want to talk about it. Now, this book, the writer was a woman named Anne Terry White, and we're going to give her short shrift today because we're really talking about the illustrations. And she worked a lot with a very famous pair of illustrators, Alice and Martin Provenson, and they did a lot of illustrations. And so when I was a child, this style that we see here was pretty common among books that you would find that weren't very, very pop culture books. They were right on the, they were the kind of books that you'd find in, in school libraries for children or in dentist's office. I remember seeing them there a lot. These were the respectable books. These weren't the silly books, right? These were the respectable ones. And the Provensons did a lot of illustrations. They really have this very distinct style that we see here. And what I want to point out to you is that although their style itself does not allow for a great deal of historical accuracy, there is a lot of evidence in their work that they did deeply research the visuals of this. So in our case, medieval literature, right? So this book has a couple things. It has got, Saga of the Volsungs, Song of Roland, Beowulf, of course, which we're talking about, several other things like this. But when we look at the style here, you can see that because everything is in these sort of stark one-color blocks, that doesn't allow for you to show in great detail, like, oh, was this an accurate depiction of the sword? Would this be an accurate depiction of the clothing that they would wear? Not at all. However, just looking at this cover that we see here from this book from 1958, if you look a little deeper into it, you'll see that it is designed like a palimpsest. That is to say, when we look at the next, if we look behind the picture, you'll see unsealed Greek letters that are, I think they're supposed to be Greek. Now I'm looking at them and thinking they might, unsealed letters that are put out there as if it's on a manuscript itself. Okay, and so when we look at the next one here, so now when we look at the next page here, we sort of see the kinds of things they have from Beowulf, right? And again, we see that we have, Grendel on the right, and then here on the left, I'm blocking this. Let me turn the camera view off so you can see Grendel's mother there on the left. And when we look at the clothing and such, there's very little they can do here to show that things are authentic. It's much more representative than that. But if we also look, you'll notice that the shields they have are very much like Viking shields. So there's other little hints there that they did a little bit more visual research. Now then, looking at the next page here, what can we see here? We can see also there's very little here that we can directly see on the left. This comes from, I think, one of the Moorish scenes from the Song of Roland, as I recall. Or I think this the one on the right also comes from the Song of Roland, where, again, there's very little you can do to show an authenticity in this style until you start looking in the background, right? You look at the things that are, the way that the hawk is festooned there. When you look at the designs on the door in the background that show a kind of Islamic reticence to represent the natural world, instead these complex designs. And finally, I think the kicker for me is actually on the interior cover pages. And so we'll just give you one scene here. And so here on the interior cover pages, what do we see? Well, if we look here, you can see we have, it just looks almost like a coat of arms maybe at the top. But if you look at the top right, you'll see that the writing style there, that isn't just medieval writing, but that is in the handwriting style that you would have had. And then we go down on the bottom part of the page, that hand there is literally a reproduction of the handwriting style. It says Hrothgar Matholda I mean, that is a reproduction of the insular hand. And so what I found really interesting about this, when I looked at the Golden Treasury myths and legends that influenced all these artists, from the very beginning, the idea that they are in a way not just drawing pictures, but they are in some ways illustrating the manuscript itself, as if the manuscript itself is there, was there deeply embedded in this book from 1958. I think that's right, 1958. I'm going to look it up now so I don't lie to you. Yes, sorry, 1959. My apologies. This book from 1959, which then influenced so many writers today, so many artists today, that I think it's really impossible for us to know how deeply this one book of illustrations really has affected the way that we've begun to see an emerging Beowulf tradition and what is going to happen over the next few centuries. I think it's likely that future scholars will find that this book had a deeper impact than anyone knew.